Hey there, welcome back. I'm going to turn this into a series where we talk about potential ways to fix US soccer. If you are new here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button down there. A bunch of you did it on the first video I came out where I was telling you about how I cried at the US losing to Trinidad and Tobago and not going to the World Cup. So a bunch of people subscribed. We had a phenomenal, it's literally, I'm a small YouTuber, right? Like at the time I'm doing this, I have like 318 subscribers. I started the day with 282. That gives you the number in terms of the growth. Today has been the craziest day I have had on the internet as a content creator ever. So thank you for coming. I appreciate it. I'd say like 98% of the comments were like either like expected, like how you deserved it, you know, whatever. Trinidad. I mean, I'm not blaming you, Trinidad fans. Like, congrats, right? You know, you're always gonna have some riffraff on the internet. It's like, really, that you just said something stupid and ridiculous and whatever. But a lot of comments, it was like actual conversation going back and forth on the comments, and that's the type of discussion I think the internet needs more of. Not just YouTube, not just my channel, having actual conversation. And discussing finer points of things. So we had like 6,700 views in 12 hours on that video, which is absolutely insane considering this channel was averaging about 200 views a day. Before that, I'm gray hair gamer, right? Like, I'm not here necessarily for your US soccer hot takes, but I will be. So I'm thinking about turning this into a little bit of a series, maybe not as consistent of a series, because right now we're dealing with, hey, there's a major problem in U.S. soccer. Like, it's kind of been exposed. Like, pulled back the bandage. It's all kind of festering disgustingness down in there. Right? So hopefully it's not something we have to do every day or every week or something like that. But I feel like I've struck a chord, and it's something I'm really passionate about. And one of the things I always believe about YouTube is do something that you're passionate about. Do videos you're passionate about. So today, I'm going to present to you one of the potential issues with U.S. soccer, and that is coaching badges. Because I learned something new today. I did a lot of reading. Will Parchman from TopDrawerSoccer.com, or at least he used to be. I'm not sure. He may be freelancing. He used to like write there all the time, like as a job, and then he couldn't afford to keep doing that, so he went and got a real job. Not a real job, like a desk job. Anyway, he's not writing as much for the site. He covers a lot of youth soccer on there. Really great site. Really enjoyed it. But I found an article. It was linked on MLS Soccer. Had an article from Matt Doyle, who's pretty big in the U.S. soccer arena from like a journalistic, and obviously he writes for MLS.com. You know, kind of important. And that linked me to the Will Parchman article, and it was talking about the number of licensed badged licensed coaches essentially in the United States, and that is about 2,500 if you do the math. And I'm basing this number off, in the article it talks about we have about 6,000 players per a licensed coach. It's like an F through A badge system. So F being like, it's like a 2-hour course. It's something like parents and coaches of my son's age at 4 years old should be taking to, like, if you wanted to like help out with your local rec league, something like that. So you go F, E, D, obviously all the way up to A, and A is the top level. There might be a pro, but like A is the top youth level. Anyway, in the article it says there's 6,000 players for every one A licensed coach in the U.S. Assuming there's 15 million soccer players in the U.S., which again I'm basing off that article, which I will link in the description for you, and it's about a year old, but the numbers haven't changed that drastically, right? Is that gives us 2,500 A licensed coaches. Okay, well, Iceland I thought is an obvious talking point. People are talking about how a nation of 330 or 335,000 people, whatever it is, like one of our medium-sized cities or small cities, you could argue, in the U.S., how do they qualify for the World Cup? Well, they have 180 A licensed coaches because they came together as a soccer federation or a football federation, as it were, and said, we're going to do this. And they invested a ton of money. It's it's a fascinating story. Highly recommend you go watch some videos on it and read articles on like all the investment they did. But I want to focus on they had 180 licensed coaches, and it continues to grow. Well, that turns out to be about 100 players per licensed coach. Obviously, that's significantly lower, and that's just the A licensed coaches. They have, I think it was like 5 or 6 times as many B licensed coaches, which is pretty close. It's not like the next one's F, right? So they've got a ton of heavily licensed coaches working in significantly smaller groups to get those kids trained up. Well, in the US, you've got 1 for 6,000. We have, if you factor in our B licenses, we have about 5,000 of those, which is obviously going to be 3,000 players per one coach, which again is not nearly enough. But I think Iceland is a little bit of an unfair comparison, right? It's when you go to the Euros or you make the World Cup in their case or whatever it is, and you get that TV revenue, that chunk of money that they're going to get is going to be spread over a much smaller population. So it has a deeper impact. You can say, hey, we want to have, it's like 1 out of every 500 people in Iceland has a UEFA badge. That's insane. Like, that would be like, I think I did the math earlier, that'd be like 650,000 Americans having UEFA badges, which is just like not going to happen, right? We're at 2,500. So it's a little bit of an unfair comparison. Like, and I'm not trying to take anything away from Iceland, but it's such a small sample size that I think it's easier to pull off. Like 180 really isn't all that much, right? Like in some aspects it is, but it's still just 180. You just have to convince 180 people to come do it. Versus Germany has, again, this article was about a year ago. I probably should have rounded up to 7,000, but we'll go with what the article said. 6,934 A licensed coaches. So they have about 6 million players at all levels in Germany. So that's 865 players per one A licensed coach. Compared to Iceland, not very good, but Germany is pretty good at this soccer/football, depending on where you're at in the world, thing. Like they're pretty good. And Germany, if you listen to the guy on ESPN go on the rant yesterday, Germany apparently laid an egg, if you're not as deep into your soccer knowledge, right? Into the 2000 World Cup, and they came together with their top 2 leagues and their soccer federation and said, let's get on the same page. Let's fix this. And they had a 10-year plan. Well, guess what? In 2014, they won the World Cup. Pretty good idea. So the guys that won the 2014 World Cup on a 10-year plan have 865 players per one licensed coach, a licensed coach. So there's a significant gap, right? Like if you double the number of coaches here, this drops to 3,000. If you double it again to 10,000, right? That would take us like 100 to 1,500. It's a lot. Like it is a lot. So I wanted to talk about the number of coaches, but also you have to look at the cost of the license. And that is going to influence how many people are interested in becoming a coach or can afford to become a coach. Because you might want to go do it, but the cost of getting the license is prohibitive to you doing it. And then I wanted to calculate, based on the number of coaches, like how much revenue those soccer federations have generated just on coaching badges. So let's take a look at that. So I couldn't find reliable information on how much an A license costs in Iceland. I may have missed it on an article. It's past midnight here. I'm quite tired. So I couldn't find it. So this is obviously going to be a giant question mark, but I know they have greatly reduced, like they've said essentially like we weren't trying to take a profit, because they wanted to boost their soccer profile, which they've done quite successfully. But in Germany, the article says it's under $600. I just said 600 because that's an easy number to work with. And I didn't want to round down too much to like 500 or 550 or whatever it is. Let's just call it $600, okay? In the United States, it costs $4,000 to get an A license. That's insane, because you have to think, right? You're the small sport. Of the major sports in the world, if you're the U.S. Soccer Federation, you're the small sport. NBA is bigger than you. Major League Baseball is bigger than you. NFL is bigger than you. College football is bigger than you. Like, college basketball is probably, yeah, it's going to be bigger than you, right? Like, the infrastructure in all of the youth leagues for all the major sports is really well established. Like, you can swing a stick and hit a little league team or a peewee football team or, you know, whatever, a local youth basketball league, right? So it doesn't make any sense to me. If you're the small sport and you're trying to grow your sport, right? Wouldn't you want as many possible human beings on the planet to have a coaching badge? Like a legit coaching badge? Wouldn't you make it easy to do that? Because otherwise, you're saying like, we're good. Like, that's essentially, with this price tag of $4,000, what you're saying is, well, we're good with there only being $2,500 for a nation of 325 million people and 15 million soccer players. Right? That doesn't make any sense. Like, they should give them away. Right? Give them away for free. Like, don't make it easy to get it. But, like, you want to sign up and jump through all the hoops? You can have it. Like, abso-freaking-lutely, you can have the badge. We will pay for it. And, by the way, we're sitting on $100 million in the bank. That's going to come up. So, okay, let's look at 6,934 A licensed coaches. Multiply that by 600, and 2,500 A licensed coaches. Multiply that by 4,000. How much money are we talking here? Where is it? There it is. So Germany, from those coaching badges, netted just over 4 million. The United States, 10 million. Do you see the problem there? They have triple the number, almost triple the number of coaches, and 40% of the revenue. Like, that's a fair trade. Like, I'd say Germany would take that trade pretty much every single time, right? Same thing, Iceland. You could essentially say they're not making hardly any money on their badges, and it's working out for them. They're in the World Cup. They knocked England out of the Euros in 2016. Like, they're doing all right. They're raising their profile. Like, anyway. So, if you gave away the badges, right? Like, you double the number of coaches, right? So, an extra 2,500 coaches at $4,000 is $10 million. So, like, you're sitting on $100 million, and you go, hey, let's not worry about the $10 million, right? Like, let's just get rid of it. But we'll double the number of coaches and get this number down to 3,000, which still isn't where you want to be, but it's a step in the right direction, right? Okay, well, what if we did this? Now, before I go to the next image, I want to talk about what the next one's about. So this is based off of the current cost of the badge and the current number of coaches. Okay, so I'm curious as a U.S. soccer fan, how do you get this number down to these numbers? Like, how many more coaches do you need? So I did that math for you. Let me show you. To get to Iceland's ratio of 100 players per one A licensed coach, you have to have 150,000 A licensed coaches in the U.S. because you have 15 million players. 15 million divided by 100 is 150,000. That is never going to happen. I don't think that'll happen until the year 2800, and someone's going to watch this video on YouTube Archive or whatever it is at that point. Assuming that the sun hasn't consumed the earth at that moment. That is such a pipe dream, it's never going to happen. That's why I think Iceland is a bit of an unfair comparison. But Germany, I don't think it's too much to ask to go from 2,500 coaches to 17,341. That's an increase of 18,841. You know, like, and you're not trying to all get it in 1 year. I'm not saying by the end of 2018 we need to have 15,000 more coaches. That's not realistic. But if it's a 10-year plan, could you add 1,500 a year? Maybe. Could you aim for 1,500 and add only 750? You know, like, whatever, right? But all right, so if you were able to get these coaches in here at that ratio, right? So I mean, 17,341 minus 2,500 of the current coaches we have, right? 14,841 is what I told you. Here's what the revenue looks like. If you kept the price the same at that $4,000 badge, it'd be an extra $59 million, which is just stupid. Like, that's just stupid money You're already sitting on 100 million. You don't need an extra 59 million from the badges. So that the point I'm making is the cost of the badge is too much. It's prohibitive. Like, I'm not saying I want to go get an A badge and like dedicate my entire life to soccer in the United States, but if it was $600, I might get an F and an E and a D badge. You know, like I might work my way towards it. Who knows? You could probably convince the C badges to go get A badges at $600 a pop, and the D badges to go get B badges, right? Like, and you filter up that way, and you're building a bigger platform of coaches. But you don't need 59 million. You're sitting on 100 million. That's stupid. All right, so what if we change the price to match the approximately 600 per badge in Germany? You're still netting, again, this is pipe dream. You're never going to have that happen. You're still netting $8.9 million, which, okay, if we go back, let me show you this one. That's not the one. You're already netting 10 million from 2,500 coaches. Wouldn't you rather you could have an extra 9 million, but have 17,000 coaches? Doesn't that make sense? Wouldn't you want that if you are US Soccer and you're trying to grow your tiny sport into a big sport? But tiny being relative, sorry, right? Like, just not as popular. Because one of the problems I see, and I'm going to talk about this in a future video, is it's chicken and the egg. It's like, you need more local teams, like good local teams. Okay, you need more local teams. Well, you got to have local players. Well, how do you get the local players? By having an established local team, right? Well, how else? Like, what else influences that? You have to have qualified coaches. You have to have good coaches. You have enough good coaches, they can create a second team and split a team. You know, like you have clubs that have 4, 5, 6 teams, right? Like those things can happen. Well, how do you get good coaches? Well, you got to provide, you know, like it's like this chicken and the egg. Like something has to go first, and I think the people with $100 million should go first. So I'm not saying this is going to fix all of US soccer's problems. There were a lot of good points brought up in the comments on the previous video about pay to play. That's been in the media as well. So there's all sorts of issues, but it seems to me to be a relatively inexpensive fix. You're not giving up that much revenue in contrast. Like, give up the $10 million a year, give away the badges, or lower the cost and still net some money so that you can afford to put on the courses and print the books and whatever, all the infrastructure that goes into it. But you're going to net a much larger population of coaches who are going to be going, I need a team to coach. And then they're going to go find a club to go start coaching with. And then because they're coaching, they're going to attract more players. And, you know, like, and it's just like, you build from there. So I thought that was interesting. I didn't know how much badges cost at the high level. I think it's absolutely insane if you're trying to grow your sport. I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments. So drop a comment. What do you think about this? Should they drop the price to 600 or whatever? Like something less than 4,000? Should they give them away? Can you believe it costs 4,000? What other things do you want to see in these types of videos? I'm going to talk about pay to play. I want to do a little bit more research so I can like hopefully articulate slightly more intelligently than I did in the first video and maybe in this video. But what else do you want to hear about in terms of how you would fix US soccer? Leave a comment, smash a like, subscribe if you're new. We're going to be doing this for a little bit, and maybe we'll just always have some commentary about the US men's national team and US soccer in general on the channel. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.